You ask questions and we'll answer them. This is the Ask DVCC Academy Edition show. Hello, this is Mark and Steve from the DVCC, and this is the Ask DVCC show, Academy Edition. Now, the Academy Edition is for clients on their children who are, or young adults who are between 11 and 17. So these are all targeted specifically, or these questions have been asked or are targeted towards the 11 to 17-year-olds. So we're going to go straight into them. First question is...
My son started talking about steroids. Should I be worried?
Depends really on, I guess, what's being spoken about steroids. Now, often I think the problem with steroids, and certainly at the beginning as a teenager, is people don't really know.
They don't understand them.
Potentially as a parent, why would you know anything about steroids? So it's more a case of what needs to probably potentially happen, and experienced this, seen this, is that your son needs to be educated about what they do, why they're not great, but not from the aspect of, oh, they're terrible, don't do them. But, you know, I'm sure he's very intelligent. Give him the right information. He'll understand, be able to make his own choice, that that's not the right attitude for him to go through. For example, he will never actually, we believe, reach his physical peak if he takes steroids now. He will never, because he will never know what he needs to do to eat, to train, what his body can handle naturally to be able to get as much from his body as he possibly can. And the thing is, he's theoretically, even if he took steroids and he's 18, he's not going to be able to take them for the rest of his life because, you know, his organs would not be able to take it for that long. So he will never actually be able to know that actually I can only really train hard 5 days out of the week. Or I can only train hard 4 days out of the week because I can't eat enough to be able to recover my body, because every single body is different. So, you know, for example, our growth spurt, I don't think we ever really had one.
Still waiting.
Growth spurt didn't really happen until, I think we were like 17. And so I guess in this day and age, everyone's very impatient. They should be, you know, full grown as a man by the age of 14. But that's simply not the case. So we didn't start really building muscle properly until we were 19, 20, I think.
Yeah.
When we were training really hard, eating really well, and then we started to build some muscle.
What Stephen's saying is, he's not saying that they are okay. We're saying, yeah, definitely no, do not take them. But you have to be aware that I'm sure a lot of parents here, and we're not harping on, but a lot of parents here have said don't take marijuana to their children, don't smoke to their children, and they have done. Now, the difference between those things and steroids is you smoke. Actually, I've never even tried a cigarette, but you smoke and you get a small whatever you get. Steroids, you get a bit longer lasting effect, and therefore, you know, you're not going to have a young lad take steroids and stop the next day. It's not going to be like that, whereas they could do that with smoking. So it's a much more of a life impact if someone starts taking steroids.
And it will affect them later on as well, very negatively, because it will essentially ramp down their own production of these naturally occurring hormones. But like, let's try and get across a point is that it's kind of really realizing that it's going to impact you physically negatively in the end anyway.
Yeah. So that's the tact, really. All right, next question.
Will weight training hinder my daughter's dance lessons?
So this is an interesting one, actually, because when you do dance, and it obviously does depend on different types of dance, we've trained different dances over our time, you do a fair bit of resistance work because you're doing lots of jumping, you're doing lots of what's termed eccentric work, and eccentric is basically on the way down, is under control when you go down. So if you jump and you land, you are cushioning basically eccentrically. So you'll see that dancers, females, and also actually if you go look at male ballet dancers, they have some chunky legs, muscular legs, and that's because they're doing lots of jumping. And the eccentric portion of anything is where effectively you cause the most muscle damage in a good way, which leads to muscle growth.
So it really depends on how much dancing is being done. Because if you're doing 3-4 times a week, then maybe, again, it comes down to recovery. But you're doing a lot of resistance work if you're dancing 4 times a week.
Yeah, and anything that they do, it wants to be supplementing their dancing. If their dancing is their main thing.
And it may just become injury prevention rather than, you know, classic training.
Yeah, exactly. So, next question is...
My son's been told to squat with his bum all the way to the floor. Will this be bad for his knees?
Good, interesting one. We're going to shoot a video on squatting, I think, a little bit later, and lunging. But potentially, when we were children, and therefore when parents were children, they were told that their knees shouldn't go in front of their toes. And you still see it in lots of gyms. People are being told that their knees shouldn't be in front of their toes. Simple answer to that is don't walk up the stairs because your knees are going to go in front of your toes. But that age-old thought of knees in front of your toes is actually incorrect. Your joints are designed to go through the full range of motion, and a joint, obviously, full range of motion. In a knee joint, that is basically all the way. Now, if you have a fully healthy knee joint, or any joint, then it is designed to go through the full range.
And the interesting thing with knees, I was listening to a very interesting thing this morning, is that when you injure yourself, you don't injure yourself when it's in a perfect position. So most people, though, only think that they should try and keep their knee into a perfect position, but that's just not life. That doesn't happen. So when you're injuring yourself, it'll be when your knee is not exactly in line with your toe and it's just off to the side, and then you step off it and maybe you twist yourself. So you need to make sure that you're strong in all of these different positions. And so, like Mark says, actually it's going to strengthen it more by allowing your knee to track forward and get your bum down to the floor.
Yeah, so basically what we're saying is it's a good thing. It will actually strengthen your muscle. So the first 15 degrees of a squat, when you first bend your knees, you use what's called your vastus medialis oblique, mostly. As you go down, you start using your hamstrings and your glutes. As you go past parallel, all the way down to the floor with bum and calves and hamstrings touching, you use your VMOs, your vastus medialis oblique, again to come
teardrop muscle.
Teardrop muscle to come up, if I can see it, hopefully, to come up out of the squat, and then it goes back to hamstrings, glutes, so bum, and then back into your VMO. So that's why you want to be squatting fully, because you use all the muscles that surround your knee or affect your knee, and you will strengthen them up and make your knee actually better for it.
And as a teenager, as a young person, you should be able to do that relatively easy. Even if you've lost that ability, you should be able to get that very fast. And so work on getting that back.
Yeah. So, that was the last question. As always, we ask a question of the day. We'd like you to comment and let us know your thoughts to this answer, or actually the answer. The question is, do you squat bum to the floor, or have you been taught to squat a different way? Leave comments in the box below. Let us know. We will be in there interacting. Tweet, whatever you want to do. Snapchat, we're all over it. As always, this is Mark and Steve from the DVCC. Bye-bye.